right, and welcome into the next episode here of Borderline Sports. As always, this is Steve here with Josh, going over the action here that we just witnessed. Week 2 of the NFL calendar is completed. We still got Monday Night Football here to go tonight, but Josh, how you doing? Looking forward to diving into the slate of action here that we just watched.
Yeah, man, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Happy to be here. Happy to be right back at it, talking about all these games on Monday after everything's fresh in my mind. So
All
let's
right.
get
Well,
on in.
let's stick right to it here with the Bengals and Browns, the Battle of Ohio, the number one overall pick in Joe Burrow of last year, number one overall pick in Baker Mayfield of 2018. This was an entertaining game. Definitely good for some fantasy guys here and there. What was your main takeaway here?
That Odell catch was not a fucking touchdown. That was my main
That
takeaway.
saved him. That
That
saved him.
you literally, I could go on Twitter, not even have like the goal line footage, right? Like I'm not looking sideline. I can clearly see just from like the actual TV view from behind him. His knee is fucking down. I can still see where the ball is, but what the
I'm
hell?
starting to notice
Fuck the ref.
more calls like that throughout the NFL where if it's close, I'm noticing the refs are giving it
That
the
wasn't close.
touchdown. And then, well, right, but they're giving him the touchdown, the benefit of the doubt, and then always being able to go back and review it because scoring plays are automatically reviewed. Maybe I'm just crazy, but I think I'm noticing maybe the refs were told that, hey, if it's close, give them a score and we'll take a look. But yeah, Odell, that really saved him there. He had 4 receptions, 74 yards, a touchdown. On the Bengals side of the ball, I mean, Joe Burrow looked really comfortable yet again. He's not used to losing, though. That's for sure. I think he said post game that this is the first time in his football playing career that he's lost 2 games in a row. And as crazy as that sounds, I'd believe him. Um,
Oh, for sure. But I like the rapport that he's bringing. I mean, he came back. He pulled out 3 touchdowns. I mean, I still don't like the way they were playing when they turn over the ball or get the ball from Cleveland and then turn it back over, and it was like a whole fiasco, and it was only like to gain 10 yards, and Cleveland ended up scoring anyway. I can't remember, but he looked great, man, especially in the hurry up, not even 2 minute drills, and he really liked to keep it fast pace. I think it's
mhm.
easier for him because he knows he can throw the ball well, right? And I'm sure he studied up on the defense. So when he sees somebody out of place or out of line, and if he can take advantage of that, especially as a rookie, I think he's doing it on purpose, and I think it's really fucking smart. And I think he might be chasing after Baker's uh, rookie touchdown record.
Yeah, best quarterback of Ohio. That'll be interesting to watch moving forward as the season unfolds. You had Boyd there with a really nice game, 7 receptions, 72 yards, a touchdown, pretty close numbers to Odell on the opposite side. Disappointing game though for AJ Green, only
He had the
three
targets.
receptions on
He had the
13
targets.
targets.
He
Had the
just
targets, just
it
yeah,
just
wasn't
wasn't a
there.
good game. Wasn't a good
Mhm.
game for him.
Not what you'd like out of a wide receiver one. And for me personally, I'm starting to get tired of waiting for Jarvis Landry. I think he's a flex wide receiver at best. There's just too many weapons to go around for Cleveland, especially
Um,
because they utilize both running backs so well.
I think you shouldn't focus too much on that for this game. I think the Bengals' run defense was struggling. Both Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb had 3 touchdowns on the ground. I think Kareem Hunt had one through the air. I mean, they over 200 yards rushing. They just gouged them. They didn't need to throw the ball. That's why that deep ball worked so well with Odell because they literally just couldn't stop the run. So I
Hmm.
mean, they tried to go in and stop it, and then you get Odell beating him, finally doing what he's supposedly worth. But I can understand your frustration, but I think depending on how big your league is, if you're in an 8-man league, no, I think you're totally right. I think you can put him maybe in a flex in a good situation because he'll get you the floor, he'll get you the targets. But if you're in a 12-man league, depending on like how your starting lineup is set, I think you can still count on him in most matchups. I think he's Baker Mayfield's safety blanket. You usually see it with tight ends, but
Hmm.
I think Jarvis Landry's going to get you like 5 to 7 catches every week.
Hmm.
Maybe he only gets you 30 yards. That's no problem, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe
boom or
maybe
bust in
he,
that aspect because of the low
yeah.
targets. Um,
So
Yeah.
PPR, great. I guess I should have clarified. Anything else? Yeah, I'd feel your pain.
Mhm. Yeah, he was projected for 14, only got 7. Slow start for the year for him, but just looking at last year, he kind of started the same way and then came into his own. And then before we move on to the next game here, you got to cover Burrow's favorite target, that tight end Uzuma, out for the year. But Sample, the
Oh,
backup tight end, had
that's
also 7 receptions too. So if Sample is probably available in your league, I'd definitely be looking to pick him up.
I don't know, man. Um, I think CJ Uzama is just a much better tight end. Especially, did you see Joe Burrow? I don't know if anybody saw Joe Burrow's first touchdown pass was just a beauty to the corner to CJ, who just had to simply like do a little curtsy twirl and fucking catch that thing. I
Well,
think
he's
it's
out.
gonna be a bigger loss for the
Yeah.
Bengals and for Joe Burrow than you think. I think you can still count on the targets being there for the backup tight end because it's Burrow. He's not stupid. He's gonna use his safety blanket and get those extra yards if his wide receivers aren't getting it done.
Hmm.
So, I mean, if you need to, you can pivot. Otherwise, I'd be looking for more like a week to week matchup against like a bad defense. It's like pick up anybody who's playing the Vikings, whoever's playing the Vikings next. Pick up that tight end.
All right. Well, yeah, that pretty much recaps it there. Browns 35, Bengals 30. Browns with the backdoor cover, and the game hit the over. Next up on the slate here is my Chicago Bears at home against the New York Giants. Early on in this game, you thought that the Bears were going to take this game handily. It was 17 nothing before the Giants got a field goal going into half. Bears failed to score in the second half. Makes you wanting more. But taking a look at it from a fantasy perspective, David Montgomery had a really nice game with that touchdown reception, 16 carries, 82 yards. Definitely getting the bell cow status that we all thought he could be. Um, a little bit of a sleeper on the Bears side here before we move to the big news for the Giants. Obviously, Allen Robinson has made headways, but didn't really do much today or yesterday, I should say. Anthony Miller, 0 receptions. A name to look out for is Darnell Mooney. He's a rookie out of Tulane. He's received a couple targets here and there. Definitely a guy not to start next week or anything like that, but keep him on your radar. He did get his first career NFL touchdown last week. So if he's going to become one of Trubisky's favorite targets out of the slot, it could be a guy to look out for. And then obviously, Josh, the big news, Saquon Barkley. Tough day for the Giants.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys saw Saquon Barkley. I mean, it was back-to-back plays. Literally, he got tackled while he was doing his magic leaping in the air, and he fell down and hyperextended his elbow. And most people would go to the sidelines, but this is Saquon Barkley who's decided like that doesn't hurt me at all and goes right back in, ends up tearing his ACL on the next play.
Yep.
It was painful to watch. Fantasy perspective, uh, I mean, I'm trying to go for Dion Lewis right now
Hmm.
because we're in our PPR league is mostly what I play. So I know regardless, like Dion Lewis will still be the receiving back out of or receiving running back in the Giants backfield. However, I just want to say Wayne Gallman did really well last time Saquon Barkley is out. So it really would not surprise me if in like 2 weeks that Gallman is like the starter and Dion Lewis is in as like the third down running back to catch those passes.
You
Um,
say, yeah, Wayne Gallman had 27 fantasy points last year, week 4 against Washington when he took over that role. So
yep,
definitely
yep.
can have those big games.
I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me. Just keep an eye out that if in like a week or two, if he's the starter, it would not shock me at all.
Okay. Yeah. Well, see, and that's important news too, because a lot of guys are going to be spending their waiver money on Lewis this week. But smart man says maybe you hold out and wait for Gallman and get him a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
Just
say it's
really,
gonna happen, but
yeah.
just
Kind of
watch.
depends on who you want to drop though, and that's the tricky part of the season that we're getting into right now.
Oh yeah,
You might.
don't break your roster for some of these that we're throwing out at you guys. We're just throwing like if you need a spot, if you're hurting it, like an RB position, wide receiver. We're trying to throw some advice, but like if you have like Julio Jones had a crappy week. I know that's an extreme example. Maybe like Michael Gallup. Don't drop Michael Gallup to pick up one of these potential, backup running backs. Okay, like let's make reasonable, rash decisions. We're just trying to shed some light on some potential hidden gems in case you're looking for some help elsewhere on your roster. Just
Hmm.
had to point it out before we get too deep into this, and next thing you know, someone's gonna be pissed because they, picked up who was it you mentioned on the Bears, the rookie, and dropped
Mooney.
like, yeah, and you drop somebody, I don't know,
Yeah,
100 yards or something
maybe you
for.
got a guy that's going on IR, and now you've got the space to add a couple of these no names. Then that's applicable. But right, don't break up your roster just to take a flyer on a guy that we don't really know his potential. And as you mentioned, Lewis is seemingly the number one guy going into the rest of the season, but Gallman could replace him, as you mentioned, in a couple weeks. And last note here, Ingram, the tight end for the Giants, had a nice game, 6 receptions, 65 yards. I was wrong about my prediction for Jimmy Graham or Cole Kmet to have a big game. They both had one target apiece with one catch apiece. A little disappointing there, like I said,
Did
looking
me dirty.
looking for
I picked
more
him.
out of both the Bears offense and the Bears defense. But that'll be for the preview show coming up later this week. Any other notes here for this game? Bears 17, Giants 13.
Still that Allen Robinson holdout. I found it kind of odd. I think Tyreek Cohen got paid, so I'm
He
curious
did.
why
Yeah. Strange
they're.
timing, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if that's like a message to like Allen Robinson, like, hey, he's been quiet and cooperative, or I don't know. We'll monitor that, but that's my only other comment. So
I'm not sure. And a thing that is coming across my mind that might change the negotiations between Robinson and the Bears is seeing that all of these players this week have gone down with injury. Allen Robinson has a history of injuries. I believe he had an MCL or ACL tear a few years back, so he knows what that's like. That might push him to take a little bit lower of an offer just to get that guaranteed money in case worst case scenario happens where he does get injured again. At least it's after the fact that he signed a deal and not before. So something to look into moving forward here. But the next game up on our slate was one hell of a game. It was predicted by you, my
both of us.
friend, as the points,
Oh,
points,
yep,
points,
no,
points
that's
of
right.
Palooza. Uh, what are you doing, Atlanta? Just touch the onside kick. You can do it at any time. The ball's not going out of bounds. You got to feel for their fans. They
They
certainly felt this
fucking
before.
stood there. I swear
Hmm.
to God, that's literally everyone who's commented about it, even in our Madden League. They just stood there. I don't know why they just stood there. They watched it like it was a hot fucking potato that they didn't want to touch. And then the second it got to the 10-yard line, all these Cowboys were already surrounded and just grabbed it up. What a job by the Cowboys. I've never seen an onside kick like that. Just
Yeah,
funky, funky, funky stuff.
the kicker didn't use a tee. He just had the ball on the ground and kind of just like poked at it. Got the spin going and let it just kind of roll the 10 yards that it needed to. I wonder if that kick wouldn't work on natural grass versus artificial turf or artificial grass. Uh, I wonder if natural grass would slow the ball down
I
more.
don't know, man,
But
but
who
that
knows? It's just an
the way you
interesting thing.
spun
We'll
it,
see if yeah, we'll
yeah,
see if
that was
other kickers pick
clever.
up on that. Maybe they do that moving forward. 'Cause onside kicks are really hard to
That
pull
should have
off.
been
But
easy. That should have been so easy. It was so slow. I
mhm,
think they were just nervous because it was spinning to like if you touch it, all of a sudden it's a live ball. So
right.
I wonder if that's what caused them to sit back.
From a fantasy perspective, huge games from both quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, bunch of points because he got a couple of those rushing touchdowns from the goal line. Matt Ryan, really good day, 4 touchdowns himself. Ezekiel Elliott, dominant performance there, 22 carries and a touchdown. Um, Todd Gurley, 21 carries, 61 yards, no touchdowns. So pretty disappointing that day there for a lot of fantasy owners that are banking on him to have a good comeback season. Then wide receivers around Calvin Ridley, 29 points, CD Lamb, 17 points, Gage, 16 points, Cooper, 16 points. Gallup, you mentioned earlier, a little disappointing there for you, huh?
Yeah, he had some opportunities, man. I'm just surprised that more didn't go his way. He only had five targets and still had two of them for 58 yards, almost 60. So he didn't kill you or destroy your team. He just didn't have the big game that I expected. I just never expected Dak Prescott to rush 3 touchdowns in. I was hoping he would share some of that with the wide receivers, and it simply just didn't happen. So, not where I expected the points to come from, but nonetheless, lots of points.
Lots of points, 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 points. Then both tight ends on both teams had contributing days here, but guys that you may not really have. I mean, I don't have Schultz. I don't even know where he's at in my league. So points, points, points. Definitely hit the over. A really entertaining game to watch in those poor Atlanta Falcons fans. So, and if you recall from our last episode here, we did have a side bet that I think we should call it a push, but
Yeah, not a
CeeDee
push.
Lamb did not have a touchdown. He did
Nope.
have the scripted targets as we both assumed uh, there in Jerry World, but 6 targets, 9 receptions, a carry in there as well for 106 yards. So a good
But
day for the
no
rookie.
touchdown.
No
I'll
touchdowns.
take my
So
money whenever, but yeah, I
$5 your way.
appreciate you bringing that up. I wasn't sure how that was gonna come up, but
Hey, I'm a man of my word.
yeah, not
Uh,
let me brag about it. I get it. I get it.
well, on to Lambeau Field, where at first could have been upset alert. Lions were playing well in that first quarter. They scored early, they scored often, but then Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, a bad Lions team, uh, all of those kind of meshed into a 42-21 ass kicking that Lions fans are accustomed to when they travel to Lambeau Field. And as you take a look at it, Aaron Jones, one hell of a game for him. He broke off that huge, 80-yard rush for a touchdown, 18 carries, 168 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns on the ground, another touchdown in the air. Probably the MVP for fantasy for this week. Just a dominating performance for him. And if you had him in your daily fantasy or whatever, wherever you have him, hopefully you got the win this week due to his uh, contributions. An interesting note here for the Lions and what to do with their running back core. On Johnson, you would think going into the season would be the number one guy. He did lead the team in 8 carries, but Swift in PPR format is probably the guy you want to start with 5 targets and 5 receptions out of the backfield. I imagine Matt Stafford is going to continue using Swift more and more throughout the year. Josh, do you have any comments or notes about this game?
Well, I was gonna say I bet Aaron Jones's back really hurts after that game.
Yeah.
Dude, he carried that team, and I don't know if anybody watched. He also busted off like a huge, I think it was 75-yard touchdown run.
Hmm.
I mean, Packers offense is looking pretty damn solid right now. I'm still gonna wait because these are both NFC North teams and battered teams at that. So, I mean, at this point, I know in our original episode, I was predicting the Vikings to be on the top of the tilt, but with all these injuries and the rookie cornerbacks, their defense is so depleted. Another injury to the Vikings is a torn pec. I think, or for Anthony Barr, I just think both these teams are primed to get battered by the Packers offense. You saw it done through the air week one. You're seeing it done through the ground week two. They're looking sharp. They're looking like they're going to be battling for the NFC North division title again. How do you feel? I mean, Bears are 2-0. Honestly, I think it's going to come down to the Packers and the Bears for division winner this season because of all the injuries that are happening on the defensive side to the Vikings.
Definitely fortunate for the Bears to be healthy so far, as I knock on wood. I didn't predict the Packers to win the division just out of spite in our first episode, but
We had them both. We were agreeing that they're about going to be 10-6 ish each, Packers and Vikings, and one of them was going to take. But yeah, I think I had to pick Vikings obviously because I'm a
mhm.
Vikings fan. But and I'm sure you just wanted to not pick the Packers.
Yeah, we'll see what happens when the Packers play a good team. Vikings could still be solid once they get healthier later in the year. Kirk Cousins is
They
always
need to
a
put up
candidate for
points.
a good game here and there, and Dalvin Cook. I mean, they still have a lot of weapons over there, but I guess that's a good segue into the aforementioned disappointing 0-2 Minnesota Vikings, who
Yeah, I can
fall
take
short.
this one from here. If you didn't listen last week, I am a big Vikings fan. I love my Vikings. I totally predicted this. they were going to lose in Indianapolis against the Colts and especially get beat up on the ground by Jonathan Taylor and through the air. And I'm really upset because we had T.Y. Hilton as one of our picks that you guys should start. And I want y'all to know he dropped a wide open 50 to 60-yard touchdown pass. I don't know why he dropped it. I don't know if the sun got in his eyes. He was open, falling to the ground with it. He had it in the end zone. It was the most disappointing thing I saw all weekend. But the Vikings got beat up, and Kirk Cousins looked like Kirk Cousins of old in this game. He came out wet in the bed and another safety. I don't know how the fuck you can get two safeties back to back weeks. You think you would learn your lesson in week one, but you don't. Cook was awesome, ran the ball well. If you played him, awesome. That's great. If you played Adam Thielen, I'm really sorry. I've never seen that man miss a catch like that before. And he didn't, nobody on the Viking offense besides Dalvin Cook did you any favors this week.
Yeah,
Indianapolis side, one notable injury we have is Paris Campbell. He and I started him, so I can feel his pain.
same.
He Oh, really? That's a
Yep.
bummer. He ended up on like the first pass or attempt he had, falling on was it his knee of funny and was out for the rest of the game. So he immediately was out. Then it was all T.Y. Hilton who became just disappointing, which is enough in itself. But safe to say, Colts were able to get it done, and the game ends up being just a disastrous 28-11. The Vikings are slipping to 0-2,
Yep, the under hit. The Vikings, or excuse me,
which
the
we
Colts
predicted.
cover the 3-point spread. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, the stud.
Over
Can't wait
100
just to see him
yards.
develop. Yep. And then surprise stud of the week, Mo Alley Cox. It looks like he's going to be one of Philip Rivers' favorite targets moving forward,
Just
especially if
be aware when Jack Doyle comes back.
I was just about to say, yeah, if Doyle's going to miss more time, then Alley Cox could be that guy that help you
He
win
looked
those
good.
matchups earlier this week or earlier this year, I should say. Um, And then yeah, no production really out of the Vikings passing game as you alluded to. So that pretty much wraps it up there for a battered Vikings team off to a bad start when a year where I think a lot of pundits, including us, had high expectations. But it's still early. It's 0-2. It's an ugly 0-2, but it's only
A lot to
0-2.
build from. A lot to build from. Just saying initial predictions about a division winner or sliding down real quick with losing twice and both to, I guess, one to a division title contender.
Moving on, we've got the Miami Dolphins playing their home opener against division rival Buffalo Bills. A close game, a game that was delayed because of lightning in the second half. So it was kind of cool.
Is
You
that what
got
cut the feed?
yeah, well that and
Something cut
yeah,
the feed.
the local CBS. 'Cause I was at Das Beer Garden here in Palm Beach, Florida, watching it, and yeah, the local feed was cut out. You couldn't get it on Sunday Ticket because it was blacked out. But luckily, Dolphins and Bills fans got their time back because when the blackout happened, there was a lightning delay. I don't know if the lightning had something to do with it, but either way, it was a compelling match. You had the Dolphins here at 6-point underdogs. I actually picked them to cover that spread in a parlay with two other games here that hit. And the Dolphins covering the 6-point spread was the biggest risk of that parlay. So thank you to them for covering that. But Josh Allen, he was predicted by you and I to have a really big week, and he did. 4 touchdowns,
You're
34.
welcome, everybody.
Yeah, you're welcome, everybody. Hopefully, you saw that coming as well. Wasn't the most shocking pick to pick Josh
Yeah,
Allen
but
there,
what was
but
shocking was the fact he did it all through the air.
mhm.
417 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns, and only 18 rushing yards. What a game. He blew my fucking socks off.
Your old boy Diggs there, 153 yards and a touchdown, his best game yet as a Bill.
Yep. Just
Parker coming
wait for that to keep happening too.
Yeah, Parker coming back off of injury, 5 receptions for 53 yards and helped out by that touchdown there. Last week we had predicted that John Brown, excuse me, could have a big game as
He
he
got a touchdown
typically
today.
does. Yes, against the Dolphins, and he finished with a touchdown at 18 fantasy points in a PPR format.
It's just
And then
rare you see that through the air from Josh Allen. So that's why last week we were saying pick one. One of them is going to have a touchdown. This week, Josh Allen decided to say, I'm sick of watching Russ cook. I'm a cook.
Huge game out of Gesicki here, the young tight end for the Miami Dolphins. 8 receptions, 11 targets, 130 yards, and a touchdown, 27 fantasy points. So, congratulations to those of you who picked him in daily fantasy and started him. And a little injury note here: Dawson Knox, the young tight end for the Buffalo Bills, left the game early because of a concussion, and he'll be going through concussion
Ooh,
protocol.
I did
But
not know that.
not the biggest news fantasy wise, but some people have him kind of slated away as maybe a
So
sleeper
it
tight
affects
end
your
here and there.
run game too.
Singletary, not the best game. He's a running back 1 or 2 for a lot of people. 10 carries, 56 yards. Really nothing much else to say about that. And then Gaskin, once again, getting the bulk of the carries for the Dolphins with 14 points there. So a good game all around. Dolphins can continue losing. That's fine. They don't need to win this year and just continue to tank to help Tua moving forward once he's finally playing games. All right, and I'm moving forward here. A game in the Meadowlands, a game that we had really predicted to be a blowout, but I think the biggest story here is the injuries across the board for the 49ers.
Let me
Uh,
list them out for you.
go right ahead.
Raheem Mostert is out with either a knee or ankle sprain. It's supposedly he's going to miss next week, and then it's going to be week to week. Nick Bosa, ouch. He's out for the season. He tore his ACL. Then we've also got Jimmy G, who's got a high ankle sprain, except I'm seeing reports that he is actually doing pretty well. So I don't know if he will start next week. He says he is contending for it, but players also always tend to err on the side of optimism when it's their own injury. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's still out next week, but I would be surprised if it's more than just a week. And who am I missing? Anybody else? Did they lose
Uh,
someone on defensive side? I'm thinking more
yeah,
fantasy relevant.
Bosa.
No, besides Bosa.
Oh, besides Bosa, did you mention Garoppolo?
Yep,
Okay.
Bosa, Garoppolo, and Raheem Mostert. What are you listening to? It's Tevin Coleman. That's who else. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, he is supposedly week to week as well. So we'll or I guess multiple weeks. So for fantasy value, you gotta pick up Jerick McKinnon right now. That's my advice. If
mhm,
he's on your waivers and you can go out and grab him, go grab him. He's a speedy guy, catches it out of the backfield, and he's better than you think. And because he's been injured for the last year and a half, everybody's kind of forgot about him. He's still a good running back, trust me.
mhm, mhm. A note here: the ageless Frank Gore, 21 carries, just a workhorse.
Yeah, for
My
how many
God,
yards?
that guy. And then Jordan Reed, the old tight end for the Washington football team, had his best fantasy performance since week 11 of 2018, getting 2 touchdowns in replacement for the 49ers tight end, whose name eludes me right now. What's his name? The stud that's injured.
George
J-
Kittle.
George Kittle. Thank you, Josh. George Kittle.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought
So
you were talking about their starting. I was like, I don't know whoever his backup is.
no, Jordan Reed is yeah. So big game for Jordan Reed, and on we go. The Los Angeles Rams taking on the Philadelphia Eagles here, a game that I didn't really catch too much of. It seemed like a blowout right away. The Rams easily covered a 3-point spread. Big games from Henderson and Miles Sanders. Surprising to see Henderson have a good game. Good to see the 2-year player out of Memphis. Um, any particular notes here in this game aside from Higby, who had the 3 touchdowns?
No, nothing too crazy. Actually, the three touchdowns kind of surprised me just from a defensive perspective. I know he's a good tight end and he's Goff's favorite target, but he was open. He was so open on two of those touchdowns. It just wasn't even funny. So the Eagles got something to fix there because nothing against Tyler Higbee. He's a great player, but a few of those were just like, wow, like who are we watching play on defense? This is an actual professional NFL team here, and I know they're riddled with injuries, so that it doesn't help. But still, man, got to do something about that.
Yeah, not a surprising result by any means. I think the Eagles are searching for their identity and for more bodies to to fill that 52-man roster.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't think anyone extremely noticeable for fantasy purposes was injured during this game. So we'll move on to the Denver Broncos and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was not able to catch most of this game, but for fantasy relevance purposes, we were on the money here with tight ends from last week, weren't we?
Yes, we were. We nailed that one.
Yeah, so we had Noah Fant and uh, Eric Ebron for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we were hoping for a bigger game, like a touchdown from Eric Ebron, but he didn't hurt you in any way. So he got at least 8 points from what I remember. The only noticeable thing here, we did have a big injury to Cortland Sutton, who looks like he tore his ACL. I believe that came out later today. He's
Yep.
going to be done for the season. That's painful. Um, what did you think about anybody else notable on the Denver side? And then you got anybody that you liked their performance on Pittsburgh side of the ball?
Melvin Gordon saved me with that touchdown reception late in the game, in the fourth quarter there, so that was nice.
Yep.
Driscoll looked okay. He still fed his favorite target, Noah Fant, so I think Noah Fant is full steam ahead, starting him every week
Drew Lock
from here on out.
and Driscoll look no different.
Locke will be out for a few weeks here. If you ask a Broncos fan, they'll say that the Broncos could have won that game with Drew Lock playing. That
Whatever.
obviously remains to be seen.
I think
Chase
whatever.
Claypool, the wide receiver for the Steelers, gets his first career touchdown reception, and he was a name that I had brought up previously as a guy to look out for, scoring more fantasy points this week than Juju Smith-Schuster. Obviously, the touchdown helping that. And then a big game out of Deontay Johnson, 13 targets, 92 yards, and a touchdown. James Conner continues to be a bell cow, 106 yards there. So
So he
uh,
showed up this
good
week.
things yeah, good things out of the Steelers offense from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, he actually showed up this week. He was nowhere to be seen last week. I don't know what if he was actually dealing with something, but uh, James Conner seemed to be thrust back in the role versus Benny Snell. So we'll have to, I guess, monitor that going forward. I had him on my bench this week because I didn't expect good things with a injury-prone James Conner, but
Mm.
here we are. So next game we'll be talking about is the Carolina and Tampa game. Brady got his first W, man. I bet that felt good, except didn't look that great doing it. He did for the first quarter or two, but I'm pretty sure he still ended up with an interception. Maybe that Bruce Arians air raid system is getting to even the best in the game when it comes to being accurate and on time. But Mike Evans showed up, so if you started him, that's great. If you listen to us, I believe we mentioned Godwin as a being out potentially with a concussion or to monitor that situation. Big disappointing drop in Scotty Miller. Otherwise, if you started Fournette, congratulations. I'm not sure if most people saw he busted off roughly like a 70 to 80-yard touchdown at the end of the game. I mean, it was like fourth quarter. The game was in hand. They're running the ball to get a first down so they could kneel down. And Fournette says, "Nah, let me take this to the house instead to prove a point." So, watch a potential running back battle start happening over in Tampa Bay. And
Hmm.
then we got Carolina. If you started CMC, you still had a good game. Otherwise, they didn't look too pretty. I think DJ Moore did okay for you. Otherwise, I'll let you drop the news about the big injury here.
Yeah, well, yeah, as we all know, Christian McCaffrey dealing with a right ankle sprain, 4 to 6 weeks, kind of lingering there, so he's going to miss obviously some time and probably come back maybe when they play Atlanta or Kansas City later this season. Their bye week isn't until week 13, so they're probably he'll be back before the bye week, which is unfortunate for the Panthers. Yeah, nice game out of DJ Moore, 20 points there, 120 yards. Robbie Anderson might be a guy that you just have to start every week now. Once again, a 10 targets, over 100 yards receiving, hurt a little bit by that fumble there, but nothing to be worried about.
The
Uh,
targets, gotta follow the targets.
Right. Yeah. So 10 targets. It's pretty solid, especially for a guy that's good downfield. So yeah, moving forward, Mike Davis might be a guy to take a look at bringing on board, and then obviously Alex Arma as well will probably be splitting carries here with Mike Davis. Mike Davis was never really the bell cow guy, so I'd imagine there's going to be a platoon in the backfield until CMC comes back. Disappointing day from a quarterback perspective if you have Brady or Bridgewater. Only about 8 to 9 points each. And then another disappointment here that I'm taking a look at is just tight end production for both teams. Uh, OJ Howard only had one reception for 11 yards. Gronk only had one target. Brait, nothing. And then for the Carolina, Manhurts only one reception on one target as well. So not a lot of tight end production out of this matchup.
No, I expected it from Tampa's side. When you go up, I don't know if anybody watched, they were up by 2 touchdowns, like 2 scores for most of the game. So it was definitely more a run-focused team at that point. So I can understand why. I mean, you already have Mike Evans, and honestly, I think Scotty Miller is becoming a pretty reliable wide receiver as help. But at this stage of the game where it was at, it doesn't surprise me that they only got a couple of, catches for maybe 10 yards. What surprises me is the Carolina side. I always thought that Teddy was quite the user of tight ends, but as you mentioned, Robbie Anderson's been quite utilized. So I mean, we're seeing a shift in quarterback behavior here. I think he's
Hmm.
ending up doing a little bit better for your tight ends than or sorry, excuse me, your wide receivers than your tight ends.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
look at that
looking at it,
moving forward.
yeah, Bridgewater still had 367 yards in the air. It's just two interceptions and a fumble really killed him fantasy wise, and no touchdowns. So
Yeah.
tough break there if you're looking at the box score and wondering what happened. But moving on, a really entertaining game in Nashville. I don't know what to make of Gardner Minshew. I think he's fun as hell to watch. I love his story. No one expects the Jaguars to do anything this year. I think their win last week, you got to win at some point, right? If you're only going to win 3 games this year, might as well have one be week one. But yeah, back and forth game. Jaguars kept it close the whole time. Turnover there at the end kind of ruined any chance of kicking a tying field goal, but Tannehill with 4 touchdown passes. You had some good production there out of Robinson and Thompson there, the running backs for Jacksonville. But if you want to talk about a fantasy dud, take a look at Derrick Henry. He still had 25 attempts, but only 8.4 fantasy points. So the Jaguars must have watched something that the Broncos were doing right last week and mimicked it to really kind of slow down that train that Derrick Henry is. But then you take a look again. Let's see tight end production here. Jonu Smith, 24 fantasy points, 2 touchdowns. Maybe he's becoming a favorite target of Tannehill. He had 7 targets last week, 5 this week. Um, Tyler Eifert, if he could stay healthy, can he come back? He had a nice game for Jacksonville, 6 targets there. So uh, good production for the Jacksonville wide receivers. Seems like balls were flying around for everyone there. But you have anything to add about this game?
No, I think you know most people are doing PPR half point per reception league, so this is where Derrick Henry is going to hurt you. He's not going to really be a pass catching guy. From a regular football perspective, I thought he still played pretty well. I mean, he still got about 84 yards, so but yeah, nothing really else than to be careful that moving forward that this will happen some weeks with Derrick Henry. Like this is what you signed up for. So
Hmm.
if he adds a touchdown, he probably saves you the points for the week. But is he going to get you like those 20 to 30 point games with all those receptions? Probably not.
If you take a look at last year's statistics for Derrick Henry, yeah, you're right on cue there. He averaged over 10 points a game the first 5 weeks, and then the next 2 weeks he had games of 4.3 and then 7.3. So yeah,
Hmm.
definitely can have that boom or bust kind of mentality there or point production out of one of the best running backs in the league. Just absolute freakazoid. I wouldn't want to tackle him even if I'm paid $10 million a year to do it. But
Well,
uh,
wait. I would do it for like
You would
500
try to
grand.
do it? Yeah, you would not do it though.
Not
There's
covering medical
no way.
expenses, not covering like, he'd have to cover the medical expenses. Outside of the medical expenses, if he gives me 500 grand, yeah, I would, if somebody hands the ball off, I'll stand 10 yards and let him fucking run me over like a roadkill. I don't even fucking care.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
exactly what you'll be, roadkill.
yeah. Moving on. We got the Washington football team and Arizona Cardinals. No shocker here. Arizona Cardinals played extremely well. Kyler Murray is very fancy with his feet this year. He's been, at least the first two games, he's been able to utilize his rushing ability and sneak in a few touchdowns. And I say sneak because it's a play breakdown. It's not a designed quarterback run. He just is so quick and so aware that he's able to slip through the crowd and get to the end zone again. Um, no shocker that DeAndre Hopkins continues to just take a monster target share. The only thing I want to mention on the Cardinals side that was a little bit of a disappointment was Christian Kirk. I was hoping he would have a little bit more done, but still,
Tell me
he has
about it.
4 targets, 2 receptions, 57 yards. It's still not bad. On the
Yeah.
other side of the ball, dude Gibson finally got that breakaway. I was cheering so loud at that. Gibson finally broke away. I want to say like a 10 to 12 yard touchdown run. About time. I feel like Ron Rivera needs to see that to get him going, and he's going to be their clear leader moving forward. Um, he had 13 carries to Peyton Barber's one.
Hmm.
I don't know why he got fed the touchdowns last game, but it doesn't seem to happen again. If you started Terry McLaurin, congratulations, stud of the week, 7 receptions, 125 yards, and a touchdown. Um, I got nothing else on this game. Then moving forward, you can lock in Terry McLaurin. I think you might be able to starting Antonio Gibson a little bit more regularly, but I'd still keep an eye out. If you can pivot, please do. Um, Anything else you want to comment on the game before we move on?
Yeah, just the ageless Larry Fitzgerald, 7 receptions on 7 targets, 50 yards, 12 points there. And as you mentioned, Christian Kirk, a little disappointing start to the season so far. 1 point week one, 8 points in week two. But next week they do go up against a battered Denver Broncos secondary. So maybe next week we'll see a Christian Kirk break out for maybe 8 to 10 receptions and a touchdown here to get his season going. And I certainly hope so as well, owning him in two of my leagues. So,
Yep,
uh,
we'll
you know,
never know, but
we'll
we'll
see.
be
But
able to see.
yeah, something we were looking to last week previewing this game is, can Hopkins repeat his production? And yes, he did. He got less targets and receptions, but got the touchdown. So
It's all about that market share. It's all about that
exactly.
market share.
Hmm.
Moving on, we've got Baltimore against Houston. Dude, Houston's just gonna have a rough go for the first couple weeks. That sucks.
Yeah.
Everybody struggled on Houston's side of the ball except somebody I was really hoping would show up finally did, and that's Brandon Cooks. Like he's been to 3 different teams in the last 3 years, I believe, and he has been a fantasy stud on every single one. I know people give him a lot of crap, so if you grabbed him, awesome, because you probably grabbed him in like the 8th to 10th round, and you're getting, in my opinion, who's going to emerge as a starting wide receiver. I just don't see Will Fuller as their long-term solution. He's a boomer bust guy. He did nothing last game too. He hurt you. On Baltimore side of the ball, why don't you go ahead and give him a laydown of all the fantasy studs and duds?
Yeah, I mean, mostly duds, right? I mean, Lamar Jackson, only 17 points. That's okay.
Mark Ingram did get the touchdown though.
Mark Ingram got the touchdown. Yeah, so the conversation was, okay, what's going on there with Dobbins and Ingram? Ingram got the love this week. Dobbins really didn't get much until the second half, 2 carries and 1 reception. So, uh,
Something we mentioned to watch. You should still be keeping track of. This
yeah,
seems like
definitely.
Mark
And
Ingram got upset, and or maybe that's the way they're doing back and
but then
forth.
you have
But
Gus Edwards too. That got 10 carries. So I don't know what's going on and what to make of that backfield. By
they tend to
committee,
split the load.
yeah, so pretty scary from a fantasy perspective just because you won't get that guaranteed consistency. Really nothing to mention from the wide receiving core for Baltimore. Disappointing day for Mark Andrews, only 1 reception on 3 targets for 3.9 points, coming off a week last week where he had 22.8 points. And just to kind of finalize this game here, it's no surprise that Houston was kind of handled the way that they were. And that you just take a look at their schedule for next week, and it does not get any easier as they travel to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers in that tough
Defense,
defense.
defense,
So
defense.
behind the 8 ball right away for the Texans, who start their year not in any way that they would have hoped.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Next game we got 2 games left for you. We'll try to power through these real quick. and then give you some any injury news we might have missed, and then we'll recap and see y'all tomorrow for our half of the games for week 3 and who our predictions are going to be, who to pick up on the waiver wire as well. So, second to last game, we got Kansas City versus the Chargers, and holy shit, we got lots to dive into here. Apparently, Tyrod Taylor, from at least what I was reading, please jump in, see if at any point if there's something that you read that was a little bit different. That he was having some chest pains right before the game, and he ended up actually being transferred to a hospital nearby. So this was in no way a ploy that you sometimes see to get rookie quarterbacks thrust into a starting role without all the pressure and all the planning from the opposing team. But Justin Herbert played, and Justin Herbert impressed me at least. He stood toe to toe with the reigning MVP and that whole Super Bowl team for most of the game. They took it into overtime, and that was by Kansas City pulling it out of their butts. And then even in overtime, I don't know what Anthony Lynn's decision. It was 4th and 1 in overtime, and he decided to punt the ball. They're on their own 40-yard line, so they punted deep, but it's Kansas City. Kansas City came back and won with a field goal if you watched the game, but I would have gone for it. I don't know what the hell he was doing. I understand you have a good defense, but it's overtime. Field goal wins, especially if you don't start with the ball. I don't get it, but moving on, we had some studs here. Austin Eckler, not a surprise. John Kelly, though, or is it Joshua Kelly? I can't remember.
Joshua.
Joshua Kelly. Thank you. For the Rams, the Chargers. I don't. They must see something they really like in this fucking kid because he got 23 carries. He got more carries than Austin Eckler, and he got almost the same amount of targets and almost the same production.
Hmm.
What do you make of this? I mean, do you see this as a two-headed monster going forward? I mean, they both had great days. Eckler had 93 yards on the ground. Kelly had 64, and they both had 50 to 55 through the air.
Yeah, I do. I see it as a platoon. I mean, Eckler was most effective when he was coming in for Melvin Gordon for all those years. He's not the kind of guy that's a bell cow back like you would see like a Derrick Henry would be. So yeah, I would definitely see this kind of ride the hot hand here, little matchups here and there. But if you've got Kelly, he might be a start next week
If
at
you
home
don't,
against
and if he's
Carolina.
on your waiver wire, please go try to get him. We'll
Yeah.
be going over our waivers in our next show, but like he looks like he's going to be in a committee and in a good committee on a good team. Go
Mhm.
grab that rookie if you can. If you have the space and capability, go grab.
Absolutely. Solid game from Keenan Allen, 15 points, seven
Good.
receptions. You had who's this Guyton, Jalen Guyton, touchdown reception there, but nothing really to look into. But we'll cover more of that tomorrow. Tyreek Hill, a nice day, 21 points, 99 yards receiving through the air with a touchdown. Really, the only valuable wide receiver to start here this week for the Chiefs is McCole Hardman was second best, but only 7.3 points. So kind of
Travis
disappointing there.
Kelsey is always the stud. He's
And
always the
Travis
stud on
Kelsey
the
and
team.
even Hunter Henry, they both had really good games. So a lot of productivity there out of the Titans or the tight ends, excuse me. This game ended up with hitting the under with a total of 43 points, with the Chargers covering a 9-point spread. So
I just want to comment that we were speculating this game with Tyrod Taylor, not Justin Herbert.
mhm,
Our opinions probably would have differed slightly because Justin Herbert is not the mobile quarterback that Tyrod is. And I think that was actually kind of refreshing to see a quarterback that stood in the pocket, took a few hits, and would dish out the ball to his receivers versus duck and run. Both are good strategies, but it was nice to see the rookie do well.
yeah, it really was. And I guess the Chargers have a decision to make. Do they come back with Tyrod Taylor once his rib injury
I don't
heals
know.
and he doesn't have implications, or do
Anthony
you
Lynn
just
said that Tyrod Taylor is 100% their starter if he's 100% healthy. I don't see that happening though. I think we're going to see another week of Justin Herbert uh, while Tyrod Taylor deals with his health complications. And what my hope is that we see the same kind of stuff, studliness, same kind of stuff, and that Anthony Lynn hopefully changes his mind and keeps this kid moving forward because I would really love to see two rookies dish it out for that rookie touchdown record.
All right, and moving forward here, the last game of the slate, the Sunday night football matchup here before we preview Monday night football, which kicks off in about an hour. Um, we've got the Seattle Seahawks hosting Cam Newton and the New England Patriots. Really entertaining game. Both quarterbacks look pretty solid.
This game's all
Cam
you,
Newton,
bud.
yeah, Cam Newton threw it for 30 times, or excuse me, 44 times, completing it for 30. Scored twice on the ground. Moving into this year, we're thinking, hey, can Cam Newton, can he still be mobile? And so far, so good. He's moving his feet. He's scoring touchdowns with his feet. So Bill Belichick and the genius that he is, with Josh McDaniels running the offense there, it'll be fun to watch Cam Newton continue to develop his own and really staple himself back into the discussion of being a top NFL quarterback. But across the field, you have the Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer Russell Wilson, 5 touchdown passes to 5 different receivers. Just a beautiful game, beautiful throwing balls. I could watch him throw deep passes all day long.
I know.
Just really phenomenal. If you started any wide receiver out of this game, chances are you had a good day with them. 6 out of the 8 receivers who got points had over 10 fantasy points here, with Julian Edelman and Tyler Lockett getting the most for each team respectively. So really good fantasy production there. The exact opposite for the tight end position. Really not a lot going on, which seems to be kind of a theme now that we're recapping these games. It's either all tight end production or none. So it's interesting to see how that unfolds. And then for running backs, Josh, you had predicted that Chris Carson here would be a top 12 running back going for this week, and he finished with 19.8 points and a touchdown through the air. So good production there out of Chris Carson. So I'd give you the good call nod for that one.
Yeah, I believe he ended up as, depending on your scoring, but in most leagues, the 11th or 10th wide receiver. But still, that's a top one or wide receiver,
Yeah.
excuse me, running back. That's a top running back there. No,
And
fun
last
game to
note,
watch.
well,
Fun
yeah,
game
fun
to
game
watch.
to watch. Just great. Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick doesn't get better than that. And on a sad note here, we have James White, whose father passed away last night in a car crash. His mother was taken to the hospital in bad condition. So James White found out that sad news prior to the game, which led to his uh, being inactive. Aside from that, I did mention that this could be one of those weird games where we get some productivity out of an odd running back like a Rex Burkhead. Obviously, not knowing about James White's scenario, but Rex Burkhead did have the sneaky 8.9 points for a grand total of 0 fantasy owners who probably don't have him or didn't
I don't
start him.
think it hurt anybody either.
Yeah, didn't
Like,
hurt, didn't help, but just an interesting note there because you never really know about that New England backfield. But that just about has it here for the week 2 matchups that have concluded. Josh, we are about an hour away from the Las Vegas Raiders showing off their new stadium. Can't wait to see it. What are you
oh, I
looking for
know.
out of this matchup?
Oh, I just can't wait to see the stadium. And there's two guys that I want to focus on tonight.
Hmm.
Alvin Kamara, because you got all these vacated targets, and I think honestly most teams, when you have a large amount of vacated targets from a wide receiver being hurt or moving on, a lot of those targets tend to go towards the running back nowadays. And then also on the other side of the ball, I think you're going to see a lot of targets end up Josh Jacobs' way. I think you're going to see two teams leaning heavily on the run and on the running back themselves to get them through this night. And I'm excited. I think it's going to be a close game, but I also think the Saints are going to run with it in the third or fourth quarter. But I think it's going to be real competitive up until that point.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you there. And you and I, we have a fantasy match here on the line for this game.
Oh,
As it
yeah, that's
stands, I am
right.
up just shy of 13 points on you, and you have Darren Waller going, the tight end for the Raiders. So it'll be
If he
interesting to
gets
see
me
if you can
13
pull off that
points, I'll
win.
take that W.
In another league, I have Henry Ruggs, who needs to go off to give me a chance. I think I'm down about 35 points, 36 points.
Yeah,
So if
you
Ruggs can,
probably
get
lost.
3 touchdowns in the air, I got a chance. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, looking forward to seeing Drew Brees and the Saints march into Las Vegas for the first ever NFL game in Las Vegas.
Yeah, it'll be an exciting one. Well, to everybody out there, you have a good night. Enjoy the game. We'll be back at it, hopefully getting another episode out tomorrow before the waiver wire pickups, or before Wednesday for your waiver wire pickups. And we'll start talking about week 3 matchups that we really like. So, until next time, boys, have a
All
good
right, have a
one.
good night, everyone. Thanks for listening.